What role did Brazil play in World War II? At first glance, it might seem improbable. A tropical nation, far from the battlefields of Europe, unprepared for modern warfare. Yet by 1944, Brazilian soldiers were fighting in the mountains of Italy alongside Allied forces. Known as the Smoking Snakes, the Brazilian Expeditionary Force made a remarkable journey from reluctant neutrality to a significant, if often overlooked, participant in one of history's deadliest conflicts. Brazil's road to World War II was anything but straightforward. In the 1930s, the country was ruled by Getulio Vargas, a man who would later be considered both a visionary and an authoritarian. Vargas was a complex figure, not a liberal, not a committed Democrat, yet someone who worked tirelessly to modernize Brazil's institutions and strengthen its national identity. His rise to power in 1930, following an armed rebellion, marked the beginning of a long tenure during which he would navigate the turbulent waters of domestic politics, economic challenges, and the global upheaval of war. One of Vargas' major concerns was Brazil's sizable immigrant communities. Italians were concentrated in São Paulo, German-descended populations lived primarily in the southern states, and Japanese immigrants, though fewer in number, were scattered across the country. Vargas feared that these communities could harbor sympathies for the Axis powers. In a region where political and economic tensions ran high, there was concern that any Axis alignment, especially if supported by neighboring Argentina, could destabilize the Brazilian government. For much of the early war years, Vargas maintained a policy of careful neutrality, balancing public opinion, economic interests, and foreign pressure while preparing his country behind the scenes for potential conflict. This fragile neutrality ended abruptly in August 1942, when German submarines attacked Brazilian shipping in the South Atlantic. 5 ships were sunk, and hundreds of civilians lost their lives. Public outrage was immense, and the government could no longer maintain its neutral stance. On August 22, 1942, Brazil formally declared war on Germany and Italy, making it the only South American nation, and one of just 2 Latin American countries, to take up arms in Europe during the conflict. While Mexico contributed a single air unit to the Philippines, Brazil committed tens of thousands of troops, signaling a decisive entry into the Allied cause. Despite this bold decision, Brazil was ill-prepared for war. Its military had not fought a serious conflict in over 70 years, and its soldiers trained with outdated World War I-era weapons and tactics. There was a steep learning curve, and combat readiness required time. In the meantime, Brazil leveraged its strategic geographic position. The country agreed to host U.S. naval and air bases along its northeastern coast, including the Pernambuco Air Base in Natal, nicknamed the Trampolim de Vitória, or Springboard of Victory. This base became one of the busiest airfields of the war, serving as a critical hub for moving troops, supplies, and aircraft from the Americas to Africa and Europe. The alliance with the United States also brought military training, modern weapons, and financial support through the Lend-Lease program, laying the foundation for a more modern and capable Brazilian military. By mid-1944, the Brazilian Expeditionary Force was ready. Around 25,000 men sailed across the Atlantic to join the Italian campaign. Their first experience of combat came in September 1944, southwest of Bologna, facing both German and Italian forces. Brazilian troops held their ground despite being outnumbered and low on ammunition, famously firing their last 3 bazooka rounds to repel enemy attacks. They then advanced into the Reno River Valley, enduring harsh winter conditions, difficult mountainous terrain, and well-entrenched German units. The most notable engagement came at Monte Castello, where Brazilian soldiers fought fiercely to overcome German defenses. After months of grueling combat, they succeeded in February 1945, contributing to the eventual Allied victory in Italy. By the time the war in Europe ended on May 8, Brazil had suffered 1,889 military deaths, along with the loss of merchant ships, warships, and aircraft. Though the toll was smaller than that of the U.S., Britain, or the Soviet Union, it reverberated deeply across Brazilian families and communities. The impact of Brazil's participation went beyond the battlefield. The country emerged from the war with increased international prestige, a modernized military, and the beginnings of industrial momentum. While Brazil did not receive the same level of post-war economic aid granted to European nations, Vargas secured critical achievements such as the Volta Redonda steel complex financed in part by a $45 million loan from the U.S. Export-Import Bank. This industrial investment not only strengthened Brazil's economy, but also provided the country with strategic capabilities that would influence its industrial development for decades. Brazil's involvement in World War II also had profound political ramifications. Vargas was ousted in October 1945, just as the United Nations was founded with Brazil as a founding member. He returned to power in 1951, though with a more cautious stance toward the United States, believing that American influence had contributed to his earlier removal. Yet, the country had firmly established itself on the global stage. Through a combination of strategic alliances, military courage, and industrial progress, Brazil transformed from a distant, neutral observer into a recognized player in world affairs. The story of the Brazilian Expeditionary Force, the Smoking Snakes, remains a remarkable example of courage, adaptability, and national ambition. From the sunlit cities of Brazil to the snowy mountains of northern Italy, these soldiers left a legacy of determination and sacrifice. Brazil's journey through World War II demonstrates that even nations far from the front lines can have a decisive impact on global events, shaping both their own destiny and the broader course of history. By fighting for the Allies, Brazil not only defended its own national interests, but also contributed to the defeat of fascism in Europe. The war accelerated modernization, strengthened international ties, and inspired a generation of Brazilians to envision a more active role for their country in global affairs. The Smoking Snakes may have been few in number, but their story is a testament to Brazil's resilience, strategic vision, and the courage of ordinary men facing extraordinary circumstances.